All right. Let's see if we are doing this correctly today. Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. If you can conversate in the conversation box, I would like for you to say good afternoon, or type good afternoon, or put up a wavy hand, a smiley face, something so that I can make sure that everybody who can make a comment can do so. So I'm going to do that first. My YouTube broadcast looks good. We are just giving a moment or two for those peoples to come in. All right. So I hope everybody is having a great and wonderful day. Wonderful. I can see Rock Studios. And if you would, please share this out. You can also share it on our Facebook page, Life Nation. As we are taking a moment, giving people a moment to come in. I know we usually come on at 2:30, but I did try to send out messages earlier this week that we would be on at 2 o'clock instead of 2:30. And we do have a lot to share today, so I do want to make sure I give some time for folks to come in before I get started. All right. So if you are, or if you have a conversation box, that means that you follow me and I follow you, and you're able to converse throughout the message. If you are not following me, you can go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and then you'll be following me, and I can go back and I can start following you as well, and then you will be able to conversate in our conversation box. So I want to say good afternoon to everyone. I hope that everybody is doing well. I'm going to try out my spectacles here. Still looks a little foggy. I actually see a little better without these. These are for driving, by the way. So give me just a moment and we're going to get started. All right. So I want to say that throughout this month, we are going to be doing our teaching by live stream. So we thank God for our partners who have been very gracious with us as we go through our process of healing and recovery. So we will only be doing our messages through live stream for the month of December. So this is where, if you want to hear the word of the Lord that God has given to us, make sure that you tune in on Sundays at 2 p.m. I believe that I'm going to close up this series today, and I may come back to it at the beginning of the year. It just depends on how much more the Lord keeps speaking about this subject. But we are on part 4 today, and I want to say thank you to all of our viewers, listeners, and partners. I want to say thank you to those who are consistently giving so that the ministry of Life Nation can continue to move and grow. Also, I will be on December 12th. I'll be on in the evening time, so please mark your schedule for that. And that is the time that God has given me to release the word of the Lord for 2018. Now, if you go to our YouTube channel and you look up the word of the Lord 2017 and listen to that word, that prophetic word that God gave us that had several details about what was going to happen this year, you will see that a lot of that has come to pass. And so God talked about satanic gatekeepers being removed this year and not being replaced. And if you've been paying any sort of attention to what has been happening in the world, you see that word coming to pass. But that was just one inkling of the things that God shared. So December 12th, I'm going to be on a guest broadcast, but I will be releasing the word of the Lord for 2018. And I do understand as a prophet that I only have a piece of the puzzle and not the whole thing. But I do believe that if God has given the prophet something to share for the coming year, it is our responsibility to release our piece of the puzzle so that people can be prepared. All right. So if you can hear me and see me, go ahead and put some hearts on the screen. I also want to thank those of you who are watching by Twitter, those of you who are watching by YouTube live stream, those of you who are watching by your computer, those of you who are watching by Facebook and all other devices. Thank you for joining in today. So let's talk about the technology of favor. And I'm not going to promise you that I'm going to be short. I'm just going to promise you that I'm going to give you what the Lord told me to give you, if that makes any sense. So let's go ahead and get into it. Today, he began to speak to me about the favor that sustains, right? We've been talking about different parts of favor. We talked last week about favor that's an elevator, favor that elevates, and how an elevator literally takes you up or down to get to your particular level. And so even though we may feel like we're going down, we're still in an elevator. In other words, it doesn't matter if you're going up or down as long as you stay in the place of elevation, right? As long as you stay in the vehicle or in the method or in the mode that God is using to bring favor to your life. So sometimes favor looks like you're going down, but you're not necessarily going down. You're just going through a process. You're meeting who you're supposed to meet on that level, and then you are moving on until you get to the place where God has designed for you. So as I began to think about what the Lord would have me to share, I actually thought I was done with this series, and then God began to speak a whole nother piece to this puzzle. And he began to speak to me today about favor that sustains. Now, because I am a prophetic teacher, I'm always going to read through the text for you, with you. All right. So if you have your Bibles, go ahead and get your Bible and turn to Genesis 42. So I'm always going to read the text with you. And then we're going to break down some things by definition, and then we're going to dig into the revelation of God. All right. So what does it mean to sustain something? All right. To sustain something by typical definition means to strengthen or support physically or mentally. That's one definition of sustaining. To strengthen or support physically or mentally. Also, to undergo or suffer. For example, used in a sentence, it might be Todd sustained injuries, right? That would be he underwent or he suffered injury. Sustain also means to comfort, to help, to assist, to encourage, to buoy up, B-U-O-Y, buoy up, to carry, and to cheer up. Sustain is it's an effect in music. All right. It's an effect musically whereby a note can be held after the key is released or let go of. So you have to understand this. If you put it in the terms of who we're talking about today, we're still talking about Joseph. Joseph had already sustained, right? Joseph had already undergone some things. He had already suffered some things. He had already suffered the rigors of testing. All right. And now Joseph's life is getting ready to take on the ability to sustain. Follow me. His life is getting ready to sing. It is getting ready to be that note that can be held after the note has been released, right? His life song is playing right now in the text, and all of Egypt can hear. He sustained some things. He's underwent some things. He suffered some things. And now his life becomes the song that everybody's playing. Isn't it awesome that when you go through and when you suffer and when you come out on the other side, that your life can become the note that everybody hears? So his life song is playing and all of Egypt can hear him. This is the favor that can hold a note. So if you're musically inclined, I know you understand what that means, right? So favor that sustains, favor that can hold the note, favor that can be held after your release, right? This favor is coming. This favor that is coming is a comfort, a help, an assist, an encourager. It's a carrier, and it comes to cheer you up. Somebody ought to shout hallelujah. So let's review. All right. And by now you should already have Genesis 42 because that's where I'm going after this. All right. I got my lovely word of the Lord here that we're going to be reading through. But let's review first. All right. What is spiritual technology? Because that's where we first started. Spiritual technology is the use of the Spirit of God's wisdom to create and solve problems. It is the practical application in life to have positive spiritual results. Favor is demonstrated, manifested delight, and tangible evidence of the Lord's approval. Joseph, we know at this point, has been hated. He's been ostracized. He's been ambushed. He's been sold. He's been enslaved. He's been accused. He's been sentenced. He's been imprisoned. He's been forgotten. And then he's been remembered. And then he has been elevated. All right. And so favor, we know, does not exempt us from hardship, but it escorts us through with the divine hand of God. So anybody who's living today, who's living for the Lord, you already understand that just because you're favored, it doesn't mean that you're exempt from hardship. And some people can look at your hardship and label you because of your hardship, but you just have to understand the principles and word of God to know that if you're going through right now, the going through does not always last. And if you stay in the obedience and faith, right, given to you by God, you're going to see the other side. All right. So Joseph's integrity, we know, unlocked his favor. That was part one that God gave us about the fact that your integrity is what unlocks favor in your life. So Joseph's integrity unlocked his favor, carrying him through every segment of his assignment with success. He was a sent one that was finally sent for by the court of Pharaoh himself to provide a solution for humanity. Right? And so solutions, strategy, and submission to God took his favor to the next level. Favor in the right hands preserves mankind. Favor in the right hands preserves mankind. All right? So God is not just giving us favor to have favor, but our favor is supposed to serve a purpose. And here we are. Joseph has not let out anyone in his life. He has not bypassed anybody. He has not minimized anybody that he has encountered in his whole journey. He hasn't minimized anybody on whatever level he encountered them, whether he encountered them as a slave or whether he encountered them as a prisoner. Each person that Joseph encountered, right, he was able to touch their life in some way, shape, or form. And even though he was not always treated well, you don't see Joseph treating other people unwell. That is key. So he has become not only a leader, but a solutionist to the world. All right. And one of the things that God spoke to me in my other segment that I did called 40 for 40, where I was talking about 40 different lessons that God has given me in 40 years of life, is everyone has something they're called to do in human history, but many people only do what they sense a religious structure will allow them to do. They chain their calling to a pew. I know. They may fulfill only a fraction of their actual purpose because they cannot see the greater call to humanity on their life. There are so many people that sit in churches Sunday after Sunday having a call to humanity, but they will not fulfill it because they think that they can only fulfill their calling in a church. I know. So he said, very few people break past the stained glass purpose to get to the place of grain-sized purpose. I'm going to say that one more time. Very few people break past the stained glass purpose to get to the place of their grain-sized purpose. In other words, there is a greater purpose beyond the four walls for you to engage in. And Joseph is one of those people. Today, we see favor that sustains, and that favor makes an impact beyond the nation. So let us begin reading. All right. We're going to read Genesis 42. And we're going to read Genesis 42. Because if we don't read it, you're not going to get what God wants to share with you today out of this text. All right. So let's begin reading. And we're going to read down to, we'll read the first 14 verses for now. Now, when Jacob saw that there was corn in Egypt, remember, at this point in time, Joseph is already in Egypt. He's already established a plan, a solution to help those who are in famine. They've already gone through their 7 years of harvest time. And now I believe they are in the 2nd year of famine. So famine has finally hit. And Joseph is now in the process of being a distributor of grain. All right. And now we're looking at what is happening while Joseph is in Egypt distributing grain. We're getting a look back to see what is happening with his father and his brothers. Now when Jacob saw that there was corn in Egypt, Jacob said unto his sons, why are you looking at each other? Why do you keep looking upon one another? And he said, behold, I have heard that there is corn in Egypt. Get you down thither and buy for us from thence, that we may live and not die. And Joseph's 10 brothers went down to buy corn in Egypt. But Benjamin, Joseph's brother, Jacob sent not with his brethren. For he said, lest peradventure mischief befall him. Remember, Benjamin is Joseph's younger brother. They are the only 2 sons by Rachel, who happens to be the love of Jacob's life. Rachel died in childbirth, giving birth to Benjamin. Joseph all this time has been, in Jacob's mind, dead. And so he doesn't want to lose his only son left by Rachel, because that's all that he is aware of at this point in his life. And the sons of Israel came to buy corn among those that came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. And Joseph was governor over the land, and he it was that sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brethren came and bowed down themselves before him with their faces to the earth. And Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them, but made himself strange unto them, and spake roughly unto them. And he said unto them, whence come ye? Where do you come from? And they said, from the land of Canaan to buy food. Now you have to understand the irony of this. We come from the land of promise, which is now stuck in famine, to buy food from Egypt. And Joseph knew his brethren, but they knew not him. And Joseph remembered the dreams which he dreamed of them. You know, the ones where their corn or their sheaves were bowing down to him in his dream. And he said unto them, Ye are spies, to see the nakedness of the land you are come. And they said unto him, Nay, my Lord, no, that's not what we're about. But to buy food are thy servants come. We are all one man's sons. We are true men. Thy servants are no spies. And he said unto them, Nay, but to see the nakedness of the land you are come. And they said, Thy servants are 12 brethren, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And behold, the youngest is this day with our father, and one is not. And Joseph said unto them, That is it that I spake unto you, saying, You are spies. Hereby you shall be proved. By the life of Pharaoh, you will not go forth hence, except your youngest brother come here. Send one of you, and let him fetch your brother, and ye shall be kept in prison, that your words may be proved, whether there be any truth in you, or else by the life of Pharaoh, surely you are spies. And he put them all together into ward for 3 days. I read to verse 17, but we're going to come back. All right. So first thing I want to point out to you is the results of favor will draw those who will come looking for your results. Understand, because Joseph was already favored and favor was on his life, his favor was producing for the whole world. Hello? Hello? The results of favor will draw those who will come looking for the result. They're not necessarily coming to look for you. They're coming to look for the fruit of your favor. All right? And unfortunately, some of us get caught up and we think they're coming to look for us when in fact, they're coming to look for the fruit of your favor. So Joseph's father begins to say, listen, there's corn in Egypt. I heard that there's corn in Egypt. Get down there and buy this corn that we may not die. So your favor causes you to be sought out because of what it can produce. Now, this is what we need to understand about corn, because I know people look at this story and they're like, okay, corn, yeah, what's the big deal? Well, back then, corn was universal and used in nearly everything that people ate. All right? It was even used, keyword, as money. So Joseph's favor had established not just an agricultural plan, but his favor had also established a financial plan. All right. So Joseph wasn't just over the Department of Agriculture. Joseph was literally the Federal Reserve of Egypt. I know, pew, that might have just went past some people's heads. But literally, Joseph was the Federal Reserve. Joseph had a plan, right, that brought financial increase to his country, and not just his country, but enough financial increase and surplus that it was able to sustain the entire world. That's good. He was the financial and feeding minister. All right. So this is not just about corn, people. This is about finances and economic stability for the world. In other words, Africa has always been bailing the world out. Somebody's going to catch that tomorrow. So rather than stealing from the people, all right, rather than Joseph stealing from the people, we're not going to talk about the people that right now are stealing from the people. But rather than stealing from the people, he creates a plan that would sustain everyone, rich or poor, male or female, Egyptian or not. That's what you call a leader. So favor produces universal solutions. We're talking about favor that sustains. Favor that sustains produces universal solutions. All right. So here are some valuable lessons about favor that we can pull from verses 3 through 17. All right. Favor doesn't sustain you without proving you. I'm going to sip my water. Favor doesn't sustain you without proving you. Everybody wants favor, but I want favor that sustains. All right. And so sustaining favor has to prove you. Joseph had already been proved as to what kind of man he was, but his brothers, who had thrown him into a pit, had no idea that they would see him on the penthouse floor of the elevator. Oops. I thought we left him in the basement. What is he doing on the penthouse floor? At this point, they don't recognize that it's Joseph on the penthouse floor. But this is what happens. So here they are, and they are about to be proved. All right. Now, this is for the people who need to understand that there are some tests that will come and must come. All right. So there are those who have committed all kinds of ungodly, unacceptable, wrong towards you. Okay? Exactly. Folks who threw you down can't even recognize you up on top. They can't. It's not meant for them to recognize it right now because they've got to go through their own proving to be a part of your life. Tell the Lord thank you. So there are those who have committed all kinds of ungodly, unacceptable wrong. And they actually believed that they have escaped the proving of the Lord. How many of you know that 2018, part of 2018 for some people is going to be a proving of the Lord? It's going to be the Lord that's doing the proving. But get this, because of the way that they have sown, okay, because of what they have sown, now instead of being proved in harvest time, hello, they are about to be proved in famine. Verse 9. All right. Joseph remembered the dreams which he dreamed of them. Welcome to beloved. Joseph remembered the dreams which he dreamed of them. Now, this is what the Lord told me to tell some of you who are now in the place of manifestation of your dream. All right. This is a warning. He said, all right, just because you dream of them doesn't mean they are a part of your team. Oh my. Well, so-and-so was in my dream, so I just know that. No, that's not what that means. Just because they were a part of your dream does not mean they are a part of your team. And sometimes we put people in a position that our dream does not. Hello. Sometimes we put people in a position that our dream never does. The dream never does put his brothers in a position of leadership with him. So a dream participant, in other words, someone who shows up in your dream, doesn't mean a dream encourager or a dream developer. Just because they're in your dream doesn't mean that they're there to encourage the dream or that they're even there to develop the dream. They were in the dream, but these brothers came to despise it and tried to kill it altogether. And this is where you better start asking God, okay, I saw them in the dream, but what is their purpose? Why are they in this dream? What about them makes them key to this dream coming to pass? Because what made Joseph's brothers key to the dream coming to pass is that they had to sell him ahead. for the dream to be made manifest. All right. So verse 11, they say, we are all one man's sons. What does it do? This is what the Holy Spirit was having a conversation with me about. He said, what do you think it did to Joseph to hear them say, we are all one man's sons? What does it do to hear your brothers who robbed you of sonship call themselves son to a father they have spent a lifetime deceiving? My God. At this point, it's been 21 years. And you're in the face of your brother that you don't know is your brother, telling him that you are a son. But you have spent 21 years lying to your father. Oh my. This is what the Lord told me. At that point, they were not true sons. That's part of why Joseph questioned their story. Just say la that. Because they were in the house with their father, but they did not act as sons, because sons don't sell their brethren down the road and then lie to their father for 21 years and cause their father grief and heartache. That's not a son. Hello. Verse 13. They say again, thy servants are 12 brethren. One is with our father and the other one is not. Again, here we go. The number is right. There was 12 of you, but your story is wrong. Listen. Woo, the way this story whooped me, I'm just giving it to you the way God gave it to me. Listen, you got the number right. There were 12 of you, but your story is wrong. You're still not telling the truth. All right. The story should have said there were 12 of us, right? But one we killed and sold into slavery. Okay. That's what their truth should have been. Right. Or one we sold into slavery and we don't know what became of him. There were 12 of us. One of us we sold into slavery and we don't know what became of him. And the other one is at home with our father. And 10 of us are here. So they got the number right, but they got the story wrong. Because guess what? That story does not make for a Hallmark movie, right? That story does not absolve them of guilt. And so favor that's going to sustain you demands the truth from its subjects. You're not going to be sustained to keep up charades. And listen good. 2018, you better get your story straight. Because God is telling you right here in this message, if you are going to be sustained, you are not going to be sustained keeping up charades. You must live a life of full disclosure. Somebody hashtag full disclosure, because that is what God is calling for in 2018. So you're not going to be able to run some half-cocked, cockamamie story on God. And if you've been lying to your family members, full disclosure, 2018, you better come clean. That's all I'm telling you. That's your warning. You better come clean. All right. So let's go on. Let's keep reading the text. And we're going to back up to 15 and we're going to read down to verse 24. Okay. So Joseph says, hereby you shall be proved. By the life of Pharaoh, you shall not go forth hence, except your youngest brother come hither. Send one of you and let him fetch your brother, and ye shall be kept in prison, that your words may be proved, whether there be any truth in you. Or else, by the life of Pharaoh, surely ye are spies. And he put them all together into ward 3 days. And Joseph said unto them the third day, this do and live. For I'm a God-fearing man. I fear God. If you be true men, let one of your brethren be bound in the house of your prison. Go ye, carry corn for your famine of your houses, but bring your youngest brother unto me. So shall your words be verified, and we're going to get to that a little later, and ye shall not die. And they did so. And they said one to another, we are truly guilty. We are verily guilty. We are verily guilty concerning our brother, in that we saw the anguish of his soul when he besought us, and we would not hear him. Therefore, this distress come upon us. And Reuben answered them, saying, spake I not unto you? Didn't I tell y'all, do not sin against the child? And you wouldn't hear me. Therefore, behold, also his blood is required. And they knew not that Joseph understood them. For he spake unto them by an interpreter, making them think that he did not speak, of course, their language. And he turned himself about from them and wept, and returned to them again, and communed with them, and took from them Simeon, and bound him before their eyes. Then Joseph commanded to fill their sacks with corn, and to restore every man's money into his sack, and to give them provision for the way. And thus he did unto them. Listen. He put them all together into the ward for 3 days. And he basically said, look, I need to prove your words. I need to know if you're still liars. Because the story you just told me doesn't add up. I need to know if are you still lying? Your story does not corroborate with the facts. Now, people for eons have thought that, oh my gosh, this was just such a horrible thing that Joseph did. This was a cruel act of Joseph. No, this is what the Lord told me about this episode. All right. He said, Joseph is trying to refresh their memory. Oh my. Joseph is trying to refresh their memory. He's trying to refresh their conscience. Yeah, because they say we are truly guilty. We saw the anguish in his soul. We saw his distress. We saw it. And it's been 21 years. So we don't even know if these brothers have even talked about what they did 21 years ago. The text does not intimate that they did. But this chain of events sparks the conversation. It sparks the dialogue that there is something still there between the brothers that has not only broken down their communication with their father, which we're going to talk about later, but it's also a wall between them. Because that's what lies do. That's what guilt does. That's what criminal activity does. It puts barriers between you and other people. Your ability to get into a relationship, your ability to have that camaraderie that you once had. Because now, instead of really being brothers and instead of really being sons, you are partners in crime. Yeah. So, as I was reading this, God began to open up some other things about this situation, and he began to speak to me prophetically about these brothers. And I believe that what he was sharing is also for those of you who are listening today. And this is what he said. He said, they came for grain, but I sent them for their guilt. Aha. They thought that they were just going to Egypt to get some grain. But in God, in his ultimate providential plan, was coming for their guilt. They came for grain, but I sent them for their guilt. They wanted grain, but God wants to deal with their guilt. So I was asking the Lord, and I was like, why is Joseph crying? Why is he crying at this point? Why is he weeping? And this is what the Lord showed me. Joseph, to this point, has lived as a free man. They have lived free, but they've actually been in chains for 21 years. They have been behind bars because of their secret of a shared sin. So they actually haven't even been free the entire time because guilt has chained them. Meanwhile, Joseph may have been a slave. Joseph may have even been a prisoner, but he was never without freedom because he wasn't guilty of anything. My. Favor wants to set you free from your guilt. And guess what? Your guilt is holding up your grain. Somebody needs to type that. Your guilt is holding up your grain. Listen. How pitiful to have lived all this time bound by their secret sin. Joseph had actually experienced more freedom with God than his brothers had trying to get rid of him. Somebody needs to say law that. Joseph had more freedom because he was with God. God was with him the entire time than the 21 years that the brothers lived free of Joseph, but absent of God. Listen. So, God will call into account those who saw and who caused the anguish of the soul of his people. I know there are people who really believe that they can do evil to others and get by. But this story, this truth, this gospel is trying to help us see that nobody gets away with anything. I don't care if it's 2 days, 2 months, 21 days, or 21 years. Nobody gets away with anything. You might think you are, but you're not. All right, so let's keep reading. Verses 25 through 28. I'm just walking you through the text and showing you what God showed me. All right. Verse 25. Then Joseph commanded to fill their sacks with corn and to restore every man's money into his sack and to give them provision for the way. And thus he did unto them. And they laded their donkeys with corn and departed. Yes. And as one of them opened his sack to give his donkey provender in the end, he spied out his money. Oh my God. It was in his sack's mouth. And he said unto his brethren, my money is restored, and lo, it is even in my sack. And their heart failed them, and they were afraid, saying one to another, what is this that God has done to us? What is this that God has done to us? I have my money back, but I don't have my peace of mind. What is this that God has done to us? We don't know what kind of life of devotion that these brothers have been living. We don't know. But finally, they mention God. Listen, in a situation that is now leaving them with memories, with guilt, they know God is up to something. They don't know what he's up to, but they know it's God, and they know God is up to something. All right. And so they began to fear. Their words and their actions are now being tested. What are they being tested on? I'm glad you asked. I'm so glad you asked. They're being tested for their lies, their stealing, and their killing. Yeah. Are they still lying? Are they still thieves? Are they going to be honest and admit they got this money? Are they still thieves? Are they still stealing time, stealing lives, stealing fellowship? Are they still operating in the spirit of murder? Because believe me, they murdered Jacob's heart, right? You bring him the garment of his favorite son with blood all over it, and you basically say that his son has been torn apart by wild animals. You murdered his heart. All right. Is Benjamin alive? All of this has to be answered for because they're being tested. All right. So are they, in other words, are they liars? Are they thieves? Are they murderers? In other words, are they still working the works of the devil? Yeah, you know people like that. I know. Don't look away. Look away. Don't put a comment down there. Don't put any names up. You know people like that, that you just question and you're like, are they still this evil? Are they still working the works of the enemy? Or have they changed? Are they still lying? Are they still deceiving people? Are they still sabotaging people? Because they need to be proven. They need to be tested. And that is what Joseph is doing here. He's proving them. And we're seeing the proving come to pass. And we're seeing the proving play out. So here's the deal. You cannot have sustaining favor in your life lying, stealing, and killing. You can't. So you have to deal with these three things. I know. What is she talking to the saints about lying and stealing and killing for? I wonder why. Verse 29. And they came unto Jacob their father unto the land of Canaan and told him all that happened to them, saying, the man who is the Lord of the land spoke roughly to us and took us for spies of the country. And we said unto him, we are true men. We are no spies. We be 12 brethren, sons of our father. One is not. The youngest is this day with our father in the land of Canaan. And the man, the Lord of the country, said unto us, hereby shall I know that you are true men. Leave one of your brethren here with me, and take food for the famine of your households, and be gone. And bring your youngest brother unto me. Then shall I know that you are not spies, but that you are true men. So will I deliver you to you your brother, and you shall traffic or trade freely in the land. And it came to pass as they began to empty their sacks with their corn, also known as money, that behold, every man's bundle of money was in his sack. OMG. And when both they and their father saw the bundles of money, they were afraid. And Jacob their father said unto them, me have ye bereaved of my children. Why have you made me grieve for my children? Joseph is not. Now you mean to tell me you left Simeon in Egypt, so Simeon is not? And you want to take Benjamin too? All of these things are against me. in the Jewish text, it says, why do these things always happen to me? That's what Jacob said. And Reuben spake unto his father, saying, slay my 2 sons. If I bring him not to thee, deliver him into my hand, and I will bring him to thee again. And he said, Jacob said, oh, no, no, no. My son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is left alone. If mischief befall him by the way in which y'all are going, because y'all have now gone somewhere and brought me back no son again, then shall ye bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to the grave. Now let's dig in. All right. So they came to the father. We finished reading the chapter. They came to the father, but they still don't come clean. This is the same raggedy half story that they have told Joseph. The same one. The son, Joseph, is testing to see if they will come clean with the father. Just like, you know, the son, Christ, is testing to see if you will come clean with the father too. So we know that these sons are out of fellowship with the father because of what Jacob says to them. They're out of fellowship with the father because of what they have done to the brother with the dream. 21 years, they're still telling the same false story. They've gotten this story down to a science. They keep saying, if you notice through the text that we just read, they keep saying, we are true men. But God is trying their confession. So we're talking about favor that sustains. If you're going to operate in sustaining favor, God is going to try your confession. He's going to try your testimony. He's going to try your story. Are they true? Are they men? Because do men do what they did? Are they honest? Right? So the father says, I don't know what happened to Joseph. Simeon is gone. And now you want Benjamin. So they have told their father think about it. Think about what they're just sharing with their father. They have told their father a true but outrageous story, and their product that they're bringing back doesn't match. Okay? How do we know that? Because they come back with grain and they come back with the money that they left with. So now you're telling the dad that you supposedly got this grain from the governor. You're missing a brother. Okay? And you come back with grain, but you also come back with the money that should have been left in Egypt. If I was the father, I wouldn't believe them either. Okay? Now, think about it. In the past, they have told an outrageous lie, and the father believed it. Now they're telling an outrageous truth, and the father doesn't believe them. I hope you all catch the irony of that. So 21 years ago, they told an outrageous and completely false story, and they got away with it. Now they're telling a completely outrageous and true story, and the father does not buy it. Yes, God is up to something. He certainly is. He's coming for their guilt. All right. So this is one thing that you need to know, and that is favor requires you to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Somebody type that. The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You want to walk in favor? It requires you to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. All right? So God wants us, just like he wanted these brothers, to live and walk a guilt-free life into his favor. All right? So let's go. This is what he said to me. He said, tell them I've got to get a hold of their story. And I've got to deal with their guilt. Before he can set you in the place of sustaining favor, he's got to get a hold of your story, and he's got to get a hold of your guilt. Then he said this. He said, some are so happy about the favor that has elevated them that they cannot see that I am trying to place a favor on them that just doesn't get you to where you are, but keeps you while you're there. Oh, this is about to get good. Favor, as in the case of Joseph, is not for flaunting. Somebody put that on the screen. Favor is not for flaunting. It is not time to flaunt, people. It was not time for Joseph to say, I told you so. It was not time for Joseph to reveal his identity. Joseph kept quiet so he could let the test do the speaking. OMG. Somebody, please get that. Joseph had to keep quiet so he could let the test do the speaking. Some of us want to have the last word when God is trying to give us the final answer. I know. You'll get that next week. Some of us want the last word on the situation, and God is saying, shut up and let them pass the test so I can give you the final answer. Are they or are they not changed? Joseph was moving in quiet power. You got to let the test speak, people. You've got to let the test speak. Some people are revealing themselves to people who have not been proven. This is what the Lord told me for you. Stop revealing yourself to people who have not been proven in your life. They haven't been proven to be true. They haven't been proven to be real. They haven't been proven to be mature. They haven't been proven to be confidants. They haven't been proven to be treasurers of treasure, which you are. They haven't been proven to be people who know how to preserve life and not take it. So if all you see them doing is murdering people, what do you think they're going to do to you if you allow them into your life? If they have the characteristics of someone who murders people, murders their reputation, murders people with their mouth, what in the tarnation do you think they're going to do to you? Listen. You're revealing yourself to people who have not been proven, yet they know all about you and you know nothing about them. Let the test do the speaking. The Lord said for some of you, you've been known to be dishonest in the past. And so your honesty is being tested right now. Joseph gave them money and the grain to see what they would do with it. Remember, they didn't freely give him into slavery. They sold him into slavery. They made money. It was a transaction. They made money off of selling Joseph into slavery. Okay? So all of that had to be tested. All of that had to be tried. Some of you are being tested to see if, like the brothers, are you still murdering people? Are you still killing people with your mouth? Have you stopped slandering people? Have you stopped gossiping? Can God entrust people to you, or are you still the person who cannot hold water? Are you still the person that somebody gives you confidential information and then next thing you know, the whole community know what's going on? Are you still that person? God is testing you. These are tests that you have to pass if you want to sustain favor. The story doesn't end here. Understand, these brothers had to face who they were, what they had done, why they had done it, and the fact that God was now up to something that was going to require them to relinquish their version of events. So the vision, the dream, could actually manifest in their lives. Listen, some of you just need to put your hands up and say, God, I relinquish my version of the events. I relinquish my version of the story. I need you to show me who I am, what I have done, my part that I played in it. I relinquish my version of the events. Joseph was living the dream, and they, without Joseph in their life, okay, without the dreamer, they were living the nightmare. Somebody is going to get that. They're at the same time in human history. And because they are without the dreamer, they are living the nightmare. Watch this. Outside of God, guilt causes you to live the alternate universe of the dream, which is a nightmare. I'm going to say that one more time. Outside of God, guilt causes you to live in the alternate universe of the dream, which is actually a nightmare. They had no permanent relief as long as they were chained to their guilt. Their relief was not permanent, people. That grain, as we see, if you go begin reading chapter 43, 44, all right? As you keep reading 43, they start running out of grain. Oh my. Listen, as long as they lived under the guilt that their lies had sentenced them to, grain was given, but it would not last. We are talking about favor that sustains you. Many people are at a turning point right now. This is what the Lord told me. He said, many people are at a turning point right now. You know your supply is gonna run out. You already know. Some of you come 2018, you're not gonna have a job. Your last day is December 31st. You know your supply is gonna run out. But he said, I got to deal with three things: grain, guilt, and grace. Guilt strains your supply. As long as you are walking in guilt, you are going to have a strain on your supply. But grace releases unlimited supply in your life. Joseph was living the grace of the dream. He was living in the grace of the dream. Why? Because Joseph was innocent. Joseph wasn't scheming. He wasn't conniving. He wasn't lying. He didn't steal anybody's wife. He didn't kill anybody in prison. Joseph is now living in the grace of the dream. His brothers are living in the guilt of the dream. They're living the nightmare of the dream. The nightmare, the famine, the place, and the pain of not enough. Listen, God asked me to ask you a question. He said, when is the pain and place of not enough going to compel you to come clean and receive grace and more than enough for your life, for your family, and for your future? Understand, this is a painful place. They have been in famine for 2 years now. But God said, I can't redeem a story. I can't redeem a story that you're not honest about. Partial truths only lend you time to consider a full disclosure and surrender to God. Listen, there are people who are living their life on partial truths. Part of the story, half of the story. One of the things that makes reality TV so popular is the fact that most people know that these people are living on partial truths. They're living on half truths. They're living on part of the story. And then someone comes along and gives full disclosure, and then there's what? Drama ensues. But you don't have to live drama when you live a life of full disclosure. Okay. All right. I'm gonna keep going because I got too much to deliver today. All right. Some of you know this is your time. This is what the Lord is telling me. Some of you know this is your time of reaping, but you seem to be living the worst life now. Hello? God says to you, what have you not fully disclosed? What are you still holding guilt about? Because guilt closes you off to the harvest. Guilt sees through the glass darkly. It causes you to not be in the place of harvest. These brothers had to, listen, they had to reconcile with themselves. What did I do to my brother? What was my part in it? Was I the silent one? Or was I like Reuben, the one who knew what was going down, but decided to take a break from it all, and then I came back and my brother was sold? Or was I one of the ones who was the main instigators of let's kill him? Or was I the one who decided to sell him instead? They have to own their own part. These brothers had to reconcile with themselves. They had to reconcile with each other. They had to reconcile with their father. They had to reconcile with the son Joseph and be brought into a place of sustaining favor. You're not going to get to sustaining favor until you reconcile. Okay? If you stay in Canaan, Canaan was supposed to be the place of promise. But if you stay in Canaan while you are unreconciled, the ground will not give anything to you. It will not prove fruitful for you. It will only yield famine. This is the word of the Lord. Okay? Remember, Jacob asked the brothers, remember he asked them, why do you keep looking at each other? I have heard that there is grain in Egypt. I need to know, why are y'all walking around here looking at each other and we all hungry? I need y'all to go down to Egypt. All right? But why were they looking at each other? They were looking at each other because back in Genesis 37 verse 25, God told us that they sold their brother to a caravan headed for Egypt. Come on. If you have siblings, you know the look that you give each other when y'all know that if we go down there, it's going to be something. If we go down there, we know what we sent there. We know what we sent to Egypt. Come on. We know where we sent our secrets. So no, they aren't excited about going to Egypt because they know what they sent to Egypt. They never dreamed that they would have to travel to the place their brother had been sent to by the slave trade. My God, send us to the west coast of Africa. Why you gotta send us to Egypt? That's the place that we sent our problem. And you know what the Lord told me, because he's just wonderful like that. He said, wherever you sent your problem is where I'm going to solve your problem. Woo! I'm getting a little happy over here. Yes, I am. Where you sent your problem is where I'm going to solve your problem. Guilt will keep you in rations. Grace will keep you in true riches. See, they can't move from the ration life until they deal with this guilt. Guilt will leave you in a reverse role, being the tail and not the head. Joseph recognizes the role reversal. All right. Remember, in Joseph's dream, he was leading and they were serving him. But at the beginning of Joseph's life, after he shares this dream, he's the one that gets put down and the brothers go off and live their life. But now the dream is now manifesting, is coming to its full maturation. Okay, its full maturity. And Joseph recognizes the roles are reversed. He recognizes the role reversal, that he is the head and they are the tail. But at this point, Joseph is the only one who recognizes it. Okay? Because the situation must be kept quiet, because the teacher is quiet while the test is in session. So some of you already are in the place of promise, and you already realize that the roles are reversed. But there's a test that has to take place for everybody around you to get it, that the roles have been reversed. It's not your job to speak. It's your job to let the test do the speaking. So the brothers, they say they've never been spies. But guess what? Again, this story is not accurate. They say that they are honest men. This is a half-truth. They had to be dealt with. It's a half-truth that has to be dealt with. Is Benjamin really alive? Think about it. Joseph needs to know this. Why? Because if they would lie about Joseph's death, why would they tell the truth about Benjamin's life? Test, test, test. So, you want to rise above rations? Because that's what the brothers were living by. They were living by rations of grain. You want to rise above rations to true riches? Test, test, test. So they say, we are all sons of the same man, which is truer than the brothers actually realize, because at this point they don't realize that Joseph is their brother. They say, we are honest men. That's questionable. Then they say, we have never been spies. That is a straight fact. This is part one. I'm going to come right back on both YouTube and on Periscope, because I don't want us to lose the broadcast. All right. But this is part one. We're going to take a minute break and we're going to come back and we're going to finish this message today. All right. So hang in there 60 seconds and we'll be back.